What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we have a video from Whatculture Star Wars, and they have this video that says 10 things you didn't know about Qui-Gon Jinn. So before we actually begin, if you've been watching my channel for a long time or you're new, just want to say this. Qui-Gon Jinn has been my favorite character ever since like 2001 or 2002. Whenever I became a Star Wars fan, which is around that time, Qui-Gon Jinn has been my favorite. So while I do know a lot about Qui-Gon Jinn as far as Star Wars Legends go, I don't know a lot about what they did with the canon version of Qui-Gon, because I do know under the Disney banner with all the new writers and the different stories they are pursuing, they did change some of the old canon. So I actually want to jump in and see what they changed with Qui-Gon Jinn. So I'm hoping I get some new information I didn't already know. But with all that said out of the way, let's jump in.
10 things you never knew about Qui-Gon Jinn. Number 10, Qui-Gon and Mace Windu secretly hated each other. Although Qui-Gon Jinn and Mace Windu were two of the most powerful Jedi plying their trade within the Jedi Order, they didn't really get along that well. Qui-Gon was a non-conformist, so he often booked the Jedi Council and questioned their wisdom.
That's understandable.
Which obviously went down an absolute treat.
Understandable.
Mace, on the other hand, was very much a traditionalist in every sense of the word. He firmly believed in both the Jedi Code and the establishment that was the Jedi Council. Mace, therefore, never questioned orders from the Council, and eventually he became a high-ranking member of the group of layabouts himself. On top of these clashes in viewpoint, Qui-Gon and Mace had personal tension too. Although he never openly admitted it, Qui-Gon felt Mace was cold and arrogant, while Mace also had a rather low opinion of Qui-Gon too. Specifically, Mace felt that Qui-Gon was wrong about the return of the Sith. He also disagreed with Qui-Gon's belief that Anakin Skywalker was the chosen one, as felt and seen in the Skywalker saga throughout. It's worth mentioning too that Qui-Gon was ultimately right on both counts. Advantage Jinn. Number 9, Qui-Gon was empathetic and often took helpless life forms under his wing. One of Qui-Gon's greatest strengths was undoubtedly his relentless empathy. This was a trait that was sadly lacking in his Jedi contemporaries for the most part, seen in the stoic and often lifeless likes of Mace Windu and Yoda. Qui-Gon, on the other hand, was able to put himself in the shoes of others and understand their suffering, even aiding it on occasion too. Due to his empathetic nature, Qui-Gon often took pity on weaker life forms and took them under his wise old wing, much to the annoyance of other Jedi like his one-time master Dooku, for example. The best example of this is Jar Jar Binks, of course. Qui-Gon saved the Gungan and brought him along on his and Obi-Wan's journey throughout the Phantom Menace, despite his Padawan's reluctance to engage with the all-round goofball. Jar Jar was, well, Jar Jar, but Qui-Gon did.
See, that's one of the things that I like about Qui-Gon. Not only is Qui-Gon Liam Neeson, so he's instantly just awesome, right? But Qui-Gon's character is like a great Jedi. He does what he thinks is right, even if the Jedi are against him. And I think that's just like a really cool character aspect to have. But ultimately, from a story standpoint, without Qui-Gon, we wouldn't have our Star Wars movies. So, there you go.
Yoda regarded Qui-Gon as defiant. Qui-Gon had a rather contentious relationship with Yoda. Like all Jedi at the time of the Republic, Qui-Gon was trained by Yoda as a potential filled youngling. And Qui-Gon, like said many other Padawans in waiting, held the Jedi Master in very high regard indeed. But Qui-Gon's eventual
they respected each other, they just butted heads.
That's
Yoda.
As he grew as a Jedi, Qui-Gon established a belief in the living Force. And this meant that Qui-Gon was concerned with following the will of the Force at all costs, regardless of it conflicting with what was required of him from the Jedi. Yoda and the other Jedi, however, were more concerned with focusing on, controlling, and predicting the future. Yoda also felt that Qui-Gon's devotion to the living Force was misguided, and even after Qui-Gon's death, Yoda continued to disapprove of his philosophy. It wasn't until the rise of the Sith and the fall of the Galactic Republic that Yoda ultimately acknowledged that Qui-Gon, again, was correct. And on to something
that's just an example of the Jedi being dogmatic
theories.
and just not realizing the truth. Qui-Gon was able to see past the orthodox ways of the, I guess you could say, even like the indoctrinate side of the Jedi. The Jedi are known as the good guys, but the Jedi itself is like a religion almost, and where Qui-Gon was on the side of being on the light, but he followed the will of the Force and not actually the teachings of the Jedi, which is a very interesting concept to tackle as well. And I think that's cool to see Yoda go from being this leader of this orthodox group that he's been in for hundreds of years to being able to actually realize it's because of that dogmatic arrogance that the Jedi had, it failed. And if they all would have listened to Qui-Gon in the first place, probably would have been able to hold Palpatine back and the Jedi would have never fell.
Qui-Gon had a genius-level intellect. Qui-Gon was an evident deep thinker and master tactician. His intellect rivaled that of Yoda and even the unsettling Sheev Palpatine. But the best evidence of Qui-Gon's sheer genius was undoubtedly his unmatched knowledge of the unexplored and aforementioned living Force. As stated before, other Jedi like Yoda and Mace Windu rejected Qui-Gon's adventurous philosophy, but Qui-Gon's adherence to the living Force gave him insight into truths that the Jedi in general were collectively blind to. Again, Qui-Gon correctly identified Anakin as the chosen one.
He was too smart
and he
for his
successfully
peers.
predicted the rise of the almost unstoppable Sith. So had other Jedi listened to Qui-Gon, the Council may have been able to avoid the fall of the Republic and destruction of the Jedi. Shoulda, woulda, coulda though, eh? Number 6, he was the first Jedi to become a Force Ghost. Qui-Gon first learned how to become one of the Force Ghosts, or Spirits, whatever you want to call them, seen throughout the wider Star Wars universe from the Force Priestesses. This secret knowledge allowed him to become somewhat immortal after he was mercilessly killed by Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace. Qui-Gon was also the first Jedi to master this all-important skill, or even know of its possibilities, and he eventually learned of this impressive ability because of his aforementioned unwavering devotion to the living Force. After his death, Qui-Gon was therefore able to speak through the Force. He used this skill to guide both Yoda and Obi-Wan after the destruction of the Jedi. He then taught both Jedi how to become Force spirits themselves, and these teachings were ultimately passed on to Anakin during the closing stages of his time among the living. This knowledge obviously allowed Hayden Christensen to make that weird old cameo at the end of Return of the Jedi. Number 5, he believed that Anakin was the chosen one even after he became Darth Vader. As already alluded to, as soon as he met Anakin, Qui-Gon was sure that the boy would bring balance to the Force. This would therefore eventually fulfill the legendary prophecy of the Chosen One. So before he died, Qui-Gon asked Obi-Wan to train Anakin, defying the wishes of the wary Jedi Council. Classic Qui-Gon.
That's what makes him great.
Eventually, Anakin, of course, fell to the dark side of the Force, and Qui-Gon witnessed all of this from afar as an aforementioned Force spirit, but he did not lose faith. Qui-Gon still believed that Anakin would bring balance to the Force, and through said Force, he was able to see that there was still conflict within the now Darth Vader. Qui-Gon, while others felt all was lost, ultimately knew that Anakin was not beyond redemption. Once again, Qui-Gon was proven right when Anakin sacrificed himself to save his son's damn life. Number 4, he knew there were flaws in the Jedi Code. This Jedi Master was one of the few Jedi known to happily disobey the sacred Jedi Code. He ignored said traditions and laws when he felt it was necessary, and his obeying to the wills of the living Force often put him at odds with both the Jedi Code and Council. An example of this was his heavily documented choice to train Anakin Skywalker. The Jedi Code dictated that a Jedi could not have more than one Padawan at a time, and the Council also specifically forbade Qui-Gon from training this little lad from Tatooine. Both decrees would be laughed off and acted upon in a Force-sensitive middle finger to the establishment. Qui-Gon was willing to ignore both these facts because he felt it was the will of the Force for Anakin to become a Jedi, and eventually the galaxy's biggest bad. There's always a bit of fine print in there, you know? Number 3, he collected all kinds of trinkets. Unlike other Jedi who were forbidden to form attachments with just about anything, Qui-Gon was known to collect small trinkets as it goes. Qui-Gon was even known to have a Mustafar fire diamond. As you've probably guessed, this was a very rare diamond that originated on the fiery planet of, you guessed it, Mustafar! Yep, the same Mustafar that played host to the climactic and galaxy-changing duel in Revenge of the Sith. What a coincidence. Number 2, he had a hard time training Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon had a very close friendship indeed, one much closer than your average master and Padawan, with Qui-Gon eventually saving the young Padawan from becoming a permanent member of the Agricultural Corps, a farmer in other words, in Legends lore. But not before the green saber-wielding master initially declined to take him aboard as his apprentice, due to his over-aggressive fighting style putting him at risk of falling into the dark side. Qui-Gon would eventually see potential in Obi-Wan though, and the two would fatefully unite of course.
I thought I remember
Kenobi
hearing that.
would then go on to become a very powerful Jedi Master in his own right, and a member of the Jedi Council. Hey, 1 out of 2 ain't bad, is it? Obi-Wan didn't inherit his master's rogue spirit though. Like Mace Windu, Obi-Wan was dedicated to the Jedi Code in the days that would follow his early rebelliousness. He often disagreed with his master's rash decisions too, especially when said decisions went against the wishes
That's right.
of the
I remember
sacred
Qui-Gon
Jedi
in
Council.
Legends had like
Number
a
1.
previous Padawan. I forget his name. I don't know if this is still canon, obviously, but he had a previous Padawan who turned to the dark side, and that's why he was afraid to take on Obi-Wan. He's like, I don't know if I want to take Obi-Wan on because what happened to my previous one, but he's like, you know what, I need to prove to myself that I can make sure it doesn't happen again for another person. So he makes sure that Obi-Wan doesn't turn to the dark side. But I think in doing so, Obi-Wan also slightly becomes more of a orthodox Jedi, which is something that Qui-Gon didn't necessarily want to happen either. So it's kind of interesting how that happened.
He was offered a seat on the Jedi Council. Despite the tension between Qui-Gon and other Jedi, he was still very well respected within the Order. Throughout the religious organization, Qui-Gon was thought of as a wise and incredibly powerful Jedi. It's no wonder then that Qui-Gon was eventually offered a seat on the Jedi Council. What a day! And it probably wasn't that much of a huge surprise either when Qui-Gon rejected the offer in the end. Even though no other Jedi in his or her right mind would probably turn down a chance to be on the damn council, Qui-Gon felt the need to follow his own path away from the collective establishment. He was more concerned with following the will of the living force than that of the council, as we've already touched upon. And in all honesty, it was the Jedi Council who should have probably been listening to and taking notes from.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing about Qui-Gon too. Is like Qui-Gon could have been the leader, you know what I mean? But he decided not to be, or at least he could have been one of the leaders, decided not to be, because he knew that he could better serve the living force if he wasn't stuck being in charge of the Jedi religion. So I think that's a really cool concept to explore. I also think it was interesting for the Jedi Council, although, you know, they didn't necessarily always agree with what Qui-Gon was doing. He was kind of like their gray Jedi. So when they needed him to do something that was a little bit more on the sketchy side, or they needed someone who could do more of a less orthodox Jedi way of doing things, they'd have Qui-Gon do it. And that's kind of like how that worked. So, you know, it worked out the way it is. But there you go, guys. That is Whatculture Star Wars, 10 things you didn't know about Qui-Gon Jinn. Did any of these facts blow your mind? Did you know all of them? Did you not know any? I was kind of hoping for more facts that would like blow my mind. There were some on here that were pretty cool, but I wanted some more bigger ones, but it is what it is. But how did you guys feel about this video? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any cool ideas for future videos you want to see me react to, let me know in the comments, or go to the Net Entertainment Discord / Net Entertainment Facebook group. I'll leave links to those in the description below. Go ahead and just leave a suggestion. If I use your suggestion, I'll give you a shout out in that video. But thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.